Hi everyone, my name is Angelo Montilla and welcome to this online course Getting Started in Adobe InDesign. In this beginner online course, learn the essential tools in Adobe InDesign and understand the concepts of creating stunning layouts for print or web. This course will cover everything from creating a new document, placing text and images, creating paragraph and character styles, using text wrap, and much more. So let's dive in and get started. In this first part of the course, let's look at how to create a new document meant for print projects. Other topics include units, number of pages, orientation, and margins. When you open the InDesign app, you'll be in the home page where you can start a new file from scratch, open a file, or choose from one of the preset pages available. In this example, we'll be creating a new document, so let's go ahead and click New File. This brings up the New Document window where you can choose the document size for your magazine. In the top menu, you have options for print documents, web, or mobile. Because this is a magazine layout, let's go ahead and choose print. Now, if you don't see the preset size you're looking for, click View All Presets to bring up more options. In this online course, we'll be using the A4 page size option. I like this size for magazine design and magazine layouts. You can see that the units are set to inches. Yours may be set to picas, in which case change it to inches for this online course. As a default, you can see that the orientation is set to portrait, and we'll leave it on portrait. Let's set the pages to 7. That is 1 cover and 3 spreads. And ensure you have the facing pages option checked on because we want facing pages for our magazine design. We'll leave the columns at 1 and the column gutter at 0.1667. Let's change the margins to 0.6875. Hit your tab key to apply that for all the fields in the margin, and everything else is good, so we can go ahead and click Create. Part of a seamless workflow is having the right workspace. In this part, let's look at how to add or remove tools from a doc and set up your own custom workspace. Before we get into designing our magazine, I wanted to go over the toolbar and workspaces in Adobe InDesign. The toolbar is typically located on the left side of the workspace and can be accessed at any time by going to Window and Tools. You can see that here. The toolbar is on the left and should look something like this. It could be moved to another area of your workspace. So if you wanted to move it to the right side, you could do that. And to dock it back in place, move it, and once you see the blue bar on the left side, go ahead and release, and the toolbar will be back in its original position. Let's go over some key tools that you'll be using throughout this online course. You can see that I'm currently on the Selection tool. That's the black arrow, and it's the very first tool in the toolbar. You can access it by pressing V on your keyboard to get to it very quickly. There's also the Direct Selection tool, and that is a white arrow. The Direct Selection tool is used to select and manipulate specific anchor points or path segments of objects, such as shapes, frames, and paths. It's also a way of selecting content within an image frame, and we'll get into that shortly. Next, you have the Type tool. That's the T in the toolbar here, and again, you can access it by pressing T on your keyboard for quick access. The Type tool is used to create and edit text within your design. It's one of the most essential tools in the program for working with typography. Next, you have the Rectangle Frame tool, and the Rectangle Frame tool is used to create placeholder frames for images or graphics. Now, I'm currently in the Rectangle Frame tool, but if you click and hold, you'll see a flyout for other options such as the Ellipse Frame tool, that's a circle frame, or a Polygon Frame tool. These are other frame tools that you can use to add content and images inside. There's also the Rectangle tool, which is basically just a shape and not a frame. So again, if I click that, you have some shape options as well. rectangle tool, ellipse tool, and polygon tool. These are used for shapes only and not image placeholders. Let's go back to our selection tool. In the upper right-hand corner of the interface, you have your workspaces. Currently, I'm working on a custom workspace called Angelo. However, there are preset workspaces you can choose from. The most common and the default setting is Essentials. This will typically have your Properties panel, Pages panel, and CC Libraries if you wanted that open as well. There's also the Essentials Classic, which is the older InDesign workspace with all your Essential Classic tools. Going back to the Essentials option, here you can add more tools and dock them on the right-hand side. For example, if I wanted to dock the swatches and color panels, I would go up to Window and then Color and choose Swatches, and you can see that that is docked inside of my right side panel. I could do the same by going to Window, Color, and choosing Color, and that will dock that as well on the right-hand side. For this online course, choose either the Essentials workspace or Essentials Classic and use the Window option to dock the tools that you need on the right-hand side. Another important option to have is your control panel, which is located at the top of the interface. A lot of these settings can also be found in the Properties panel, which is on the right-hand side. So typically, you can make the same settings at the top that you could on the right-hand side in the Properties panel. To access the Control panel, go up to Window and choose Control. You can see I have mine off now, and if I want to activate it, go back to Window and choose Control. And now you have your control options up top. These panels are quick ways of making adjustments to text, shapes, and colors. It also offers alignment tools and distribution tools and other important features. Now, before moving on to the next step, let's save this document so we can keep working on it throughout the online course. To do that, go up to File and Save. Choose the folder that you want to save this to. I have a folder called Magazine Design, and let's just name this Charm Magazine. Once you've done that, click Save, and you can move on to the next part of the course. In this part, let's get a closer look at how to add, remove, or duplicate pages using the Pages panel. Also, learn about the parent pages and how to use them to streamline your workflow. The Pages panel has many purposes. Not only does it give you a thumbnail view of how many pages are in a document, but it also serves as a great way to navigate through a document. You can see I'm currently on page 1 in the magazine. If I double click page 2, that takes me to the first spread, page 2 and 3. I can double click page 4, and now I'm on page 4 and 5, the second spread. And I can double click page 6 to take me to the final spread in our magazine. To pan around a page or spread, hold your space bar key down and mouse to the area that you want to move to. Alternatively, you can use the right bar and bottom bar to navigate around a document. If I click back on page 1, that takes me back to page 1. I can hold Command or Control on Windows and press 0 to take me to the Fit Page view. Now we are working in facing pages, but for whatever reason, if you ever had to change that, simply go to the Properties panel and deselect Facing Pages. Now, if you go to the Pages panel, you'll notice that all your pages are viewed here as single pages and not as spreads. If I go back to the Properties panel, I can select Facing Pages, and Facing Pages will be turned on once again. There are a couple ways of adding pages to a document. The easiest way is clicking the Create New Page icon located in the bottom right-hand corner. This will create a new page following the page you currently have selected. So because I had page 1 selected, it created a new page 2. If I press Command Control Z to go back, I can click on page 7 and create a new spread by adding 2 pages to our document. And you can see I have page 8 and 9. To delete pages, simply click on it once and click the trash can to delete. I can do the same with page 8, click the trash can to delete. You can also add new pages by clicking the Pages option icon located in the upper right-hand corner and choosing Insert Pages. Here you have a little bit more control in where you want to place the pages. For example, if I wanted to add 2 pages after page 5 and click OK, it'll add 2 pages after page 5, and you could see I have 6 and 7, and it just bumped the other pages down to the end of the document. Once again, I'm going to delete these last 2 pages because we only want 7 for this online course. And I'll just go back to page 1. Now to duplicate a page, simply right-click it and choose Duplicate Page. That will duplicate the page after the page you have selected. You can also click on it once, right-click again, and duplicate page at the end of the document. Once again, you can see I have 2 pages, 8 and 9 at the end of the document, which I'm going to delete because we only want 7 pages in our magazine. And I'll go back to page 1 once again. In the Pages panel, you'll also see the parent pages. They're located in the upper right-hand corner of the Pages panel, and they're labeled A Parent. If I double-click, now I'm in the parent pages. Anything you place on a parent page will appear across the entire document. This is perfect placement for logos, page numbering, or dates. To give you an example, if I click on the rectangle frame tool and create a small rectangle, you'll notice that if I make my way back to the regular pages, that rectangle is on every left-hand page of my document. If I go back to the A Parent, click on my selection tool, click on that rectangle, press Delete or Backspace on my keyboard. Now that rectangle is no longer on the left-hand pages in the document. Let's move on to the next step in the online course. Before going over how to import text and working with text frames, let's create some guides to add a little more structure to the magazine document. We're going to be applying the guides to the parent pages, so once again, double-click the A Parent page to make your way inside the parent pages. Next, go up to Layout and click Create Guides. We're going to be adding 3 columns to our magazine layout, and to see the guides being placed in real time, click the preview box and you can see that the guides are on the page. We want to fit the guides to the margins and not the page, so you see that the guides start on the left side and right side margin of the document. And we're also going to increase the gutter width. Now by default, it'll be 0.1667. Let's increase it to 0.25. Once you have those settings in place, click OK, and then double click on page 2 to exit the A Parent pages. And now we can start working on the first spread in the document. In this next part, let's look at how to place a Word document into a layout and format text. Other topics include resizing text, adjusting line and character spacing, and applying a drop cap. We'll also take a closer look at how to use text frame options. We briefly touched on the Type tool earlier on. To access it, click on the T icon in the Tools panel, and you can see that the Type tool is now activated inside of my cursor. I'm going to draw a text frame starting from the left side of the margin and making my way to the right side. Something like that is fine. And you can see that I have the blinking cursor now where I can start typing text or importing text. Now we're going to contain the headline, the subhead, and the body text all in one frame here. Ideally, the less frames you have, the better. However, if you feel more comfortable working with separate frames, you can also do that as well. I'm going to click on the selection tool once again, and I want the depth of this to be around 4.6 inches in depth. You could do that in the control panel up top here. I'm just going to change it to 4.6, and then you can adjust it accordingly. And you notice there I was able to resize that frame with the selection tool by clicking and dragging any of the handles on the text frame. There are a couple ways of importing text into a text frame. You can copy text from a website or Word document and paste it into the frame. However, in this next part, we'll go over how to import text from a file. With the frame selected, make your way up to File and Place. Now you may want to go to File and Open. However, that is not how you place text inside of an InDesign document. When you go to File and Open, that opens an InDesign document. To place text, choose Place. In the course download files, there are a couple Word documents you can choose from. For this example, we'll be choosing Trending Article. Before clicking Open, let's choose the Show Import options just so we have some more control when we're importing this text into the InDesign document. Now you can go ahead and click Open. This brings up a separate dialog with more options. For this example, we'll be removing all the formatting from the Word document and importing it as basic text. So ensure that you have Remove Styles and Formatting from Text and Tables selected. If you wanted to keep the styles and formatting, you would choose Preserve Styles and Formatting from Text and Tables. Once you have this selection, go ahead and click OK. You can see that imports the text from our Word document into Adobe InDesign. Now, as mentioned previously, there are a few ways of formatting and typesetting the text. The first is in the Control panel up top. The second is in the Properties panel. And the third is by opening the paragraph and character windows separately if you wanted to access the text formatting tools there. This can be done by going to Window, Type and Tables, and clicking Character, Window, Type and Tables, and choosing Paragraph. Now if you want, you can group these together and dock them in your right side panel. It just gives you another option of formatting text. Now to select the text inside of the frame, simply double-click to enter the text frame, and you can see once again that the blinking cursor is activated. While holding Command, that's Control on Windows, press A on your keyboard to select all. For this example, we'll be using the Adobe font called Menno Display. And we want the weight to be light, so choose light, and let's change the font size to 10. You can see I could do that in the Control panel here. Also, you could do it in the Properties panel on the right-hand side. We're going to change that to 10. You can also adjust the size of text with the keyboard shortcut Shift-Command, that's Shift-Control on Windows, and the greater than key on your keyboard. And if you want to decrease it, Shift-Command or Shift-Control on Windows, and the less than. And that does it in increments of 2. So if I do Shift-Command greater than, now my point size is 12. If I do Shift-Command less than, now my point size is back to 10. To adjust the line spacing, you could do that right underneath the font size. You can see that the line spacing is currently set to 12 point. Now a good rule of thumb is having the line spacing for body text at least 2 points greater than the size of the font. So if I zoom in, and to do that, by the way, is hold Option or Alt on Windows and zoom in with your mouse, you could see that my type is set to 10 point and the line spacing is set to 12. And that is comfortable. However, if I wanted to increase the point size to say 14, you could do that by increasing it from the top option in the Control panel or the Properties panel if I wanted to go back down to 12. I think in this case, 12 point is fine. However, if we want to change it later on, we can. Now that the entire article is Menno Display Light, we can begin formatting the header and subheader which will also be in the same typeface. So as an example, let's select the main headline, which is trending in 2025. And in the control panel, let's change the font size to 48 point. We can align this headline to the center of the text, and that will only align the headline and not the text underneath. To do that, we can change the alignment of our text in the upper right-hand corner in the control panel. You can see that align center. You can also do it in the properties panel here, align center. With the header still selected in the properties panel or the control panel, make your way to the paragraph options and apply a 0.25 inch value in the space after field. That's located right here. You can see if I hover over it, it's called space after. So I want to increase the space after the headline. And I'm going to simply type it in 0.25 and press my tab key on my keyboard to apply that selection. And as mentioned, you can also make these settings in the paragraph window. You can see that I've made that adjustment here, 0.25. It's just a quicker way to do it in the properties panel here. And if you wanted to do it in the controls panel, you would just have to toggle between the character formatting controls and the paragraph formatting controls. If I click the paragraph option, you'll notice that I've adjusted the space after up top. So just know that there's different ways of applying this, and it's just based on your personal preference. I tend to jump between the control panel and the properties panel, and I apply it based on what's closer to the area that I'm working on, if that makes sense. To adjust the character spacing of the headline, increase or decrease the value of the tracking field located to the right of the size and line spacing controls. You can see that here. It's the VA with the two arrowheads going in opposite directions. Now, if I wanted to increase the character spacing, this is called tracking, where you're increasing the space between all the characters simultaneously. And you can see that that is done in increments of 10. If I wanted to decrease it, I would go the opposite direction, and you can see that just tightens it up a little too much, and you don't want the letters to start touching. So I think something like 10 or even 20 would work. Next, let's select the subheader, which is located right underneath the main headline, and let's set the point size to about 17. Something like that looks good. We'll have to adjust the line spacing. So let's increase that to maybe 19. And once again, we'll adjust the space after, in this case, to 0.25 inches. Press tab on your keyboard, and now we have a nice space between our subhead and the start of our body text. Once again, with the subhead selected, let's align it to the center. And I'm just going to bring up this paragraph here. So our copy starts with the word as. Next, let's adjust the text frame so it's 3 columns. I'm going to click on the selection tool. With the frame still selected, make your way up to the top right-hand corner of the control panel, and we could change the number of columns from 1. And if I make it 2, now it's 2 columns. Now the only problem here is that the headline as well as the subhead are adjusting with the columns for the body text, and I don't want them to be. So let's double click, select both the subhead and the headline, and make your way over to the paragraph window. This is where we can adjust the span columns option. Click on the paragraph window options icon and choose span columns. Here we can adjust the paragraph layout to span columns, and you can see that with my preview box selected, the change happens in real time. Both the headline as well as the subhead are now not affected by the number of columns for this text frame. So I'll click OK and go back to the text frame. Click on the selection tool. With the text frame still selected, let's make it 3 columns. Now, one thing you'll notice here, if I've moved down just a bit, is that the column gutters for the document, remember we created those guides, don't align with the gutters for the text frame. So to adjust this, make your way up to Object and Text Frame Options. A shortcut for this, if I hit Cancel, is hold Option on a Mac, Alt on Windows, and double click to bring up your text frame options. And now here in the gutter, let's change this to 0.25. If I press my preview icon box there, you can see that now that the text frame aligns with the guides that we created previously. I can go ahead and click OK to exit the text frame options, and then I'm just going to press Command and 0 to go back to Fit and Page View. Next, I want to adjust the space after in the body text. Now you'll notice that there's a red plus icon in the bottom right hand corner. This means that there's overset text, so there's no real easy way to select all the text after it's being cut off here. There is, however, a way to access it using the story editor. So if I place my cursor near the bottom of the text frame, make your way up to Edit, and choose Edit in Story Editor. Now I can expand this and we can select the text, all the text that's after. You can see that I have the styles applied here for this article. However, we're only going to select from the bottom where it says outfit as the last word and select all of it to the very top. Make sure you're not selecting the headline or the subhead. And we're going to change the space after, in this case, to 0.1. You can see I'm doing that in the Properties panel on the right-hand side. I'll press my Tab key, and now we've applied that. We can click the X button to close the story editor, and now we have our space after setting applied to the body text. Let's click on the Selection tool, and let's pan over to the left, because now we're going to be linking the text frames to the next page. I mentioned the red plus icon in the bottom right hand corner of the text frame. Once again, this does signify that there's overset text in that frame. We can click on that red icon, and now I have the overset text inside of my loaded cursor. Now I could just click and drop that text on the next page. However, you have more control with our guides and our margins to create the setup that we want. So the layout is we want one full column down the left side, and you can see that there's still overset text. So I'll click it again, and now we can adjust the next frame. We can draw the next frame out, something like that. And here's another tip. If I double click the top handle of this frame, double click, that will adjust it to the content inside of that frame. I am going to cut or delete this for now because we won't need it. That's there for your purposes. And now what I can do is double click that top handle again, and it'll adjust it accordingly. I do have an extra space there, which I will delete. Go back to the Selection tool, double click, and now it's adjusted to the bottom margin. We're going to have to adjust this text frame to 2 columns. So with that last frame selected, go up to your control panel in the right corner and adjust that from 1 to 2 columns. And again, adjust your frame by double clicking the top handle, and that will automatically adjust the frame to the content. Next, I'm going to select all the paragraph headers in the article and set the weight from light to semi-bold. Now, if I zoom in, again, that's Option or Alt on Windows, and just scroll in with your mouse. I can use my eyedropper tool. If I click and hold and select it from my flyout there, you can also press I on your keyboard for quick access. Using the eyedropper tool, I can click on the first body text header and then just go over each one. You can see that my cursor right above the eyedropper tool has a little T. When you see that little T, just select the text you want to format, and it'll apply the original formatting from the first body text header. Now, you don't have to use the eyedropper tool. It's just a quick way of formatting each one. You could still select each body text header and change the weight from light to semi-bold. Let me just quickly finish these off and we'll move on to the next step. The other thing I haven't done here is I have to adjust this text frame, much like we did with the other. So I'm going to hold Option, that's Alt on Windows, and double click to bring up my text frame options. And remember, we're changing the gutter to 0.25 so that the text gutter aligns with the guides gutter that we created earlier on. Once you have that, click OK, press Command Control 0 to go back to fit in page. And just like that, we've set up our text. We've imported it using the file place method. We formatted the headline and subhead. We formatted the text, the copy. The last thing I'd like to do here is add a drop cap to our text. So to add a drop cap, and a drop cap is basically the first letter in the article is larger. So in this case, it'll be the letter A. What I'll do is just place my cursor at the beginning of the paragraph, and drop caps will be applied through the paragraph settings. So I'll do it in the Properties panel under Paragraph. You can see that the icon here is the letter A is larger. That's drop cap number of lines. So I want the drop cap number of lines to be 3. And when I've set that to 3, the A takes up 3 lines. You see this? 1, 2, 3. Anything more than that, 4 would work. But I think once you start getting a little too big, it just becomes a little overwhelming. So just use your discretion and see what works. And in this example, we'll use 3 lines as our drop cap. Again, Command Control 0 to go back to fit page. And now we've set up our text on pages 2 and 3. In this next part, we'll look at how to save the text formatting that was applied in the previous part using paragraph and character styles. This will help you streamline your workflow and design more efficiently. There are 2 ways of creating paragraph styles and character styles in Adobe InDesign. You can open dedicated panels for each, which can be found under Window, Styles, Paragraph Styles, and Character Styles. If I click Paragraph Styles, you'll see that I already have the Paragraph Styles window and the Character Styles window docked on my right side panel. Another preferable and convenient way of applying styles is in the Properties panel. In this part, we'll use a combination of both to create and edit styles. Let's apply our first style to the main headline. Double-click the text frame and select the main headline. You'll see in the Properties panel, you can create a new paragraph style by clicking this icon. It's a plus icon. Go ahead and click that. And let's name this paragraph style Main Title dash Meno Display. And this is 48 point. So let's type in 48 PT. Press Enter to finalize the paragraph style. Now it's good rule of thumb to add the font and the point size to the naming convention, especially if you're working with many paragraph styles. This just takes away any of the guesswork. Let's create our second style by selecting the subheader. And again, let's click on the new paragraph style icon. And we're going to name this subheader dash Meno Display. And this is 17 point. Enter or return to finalize the paragraph style. Let's click in the body text. Anywhere in the paragraph is fine. And let's create another paragraph style. And this will be called Body Copy dash Meno Display. And this is 10 point, 10 PT. Press Return or Enter to finalize the paragraph style. Place your cursor in any of the body text headers. And let's create another paragraph style by clicking the icon to create a new style. And this will be called Body Text Headers or Header dash Meno Display. And this is also 10 point. Remember to press Enter or Return to finalize the paragraph style. And then finally, I'm going to place my cursor in the very first paragraph, which has the drop cap, and I'm going to create another style, and let's just call this Body Drop Cap, and press Return. Now, if I expand the paragraph styles drop-down window here, you'll notice that we have all of our paragraph styles that we just created. Body drop cap, body text header, body copy, subheader, and main title. And alternatively, they'll also be in your paragraph styles window here. Main title, subheader, body copy, body text header, and body drop cap. Now, to get a better sense of how this works, if I double click and select the main title again, and I select basic paragraph from the paragraph window, that will strip out all the formatting in the main title. And then I can click main title again, and we've saved and preserved that formatting. The same thing applies here in the subhead. I'll click on basic paragraph in the paragraph styles window, and you'll notice that that clears all the formatting. I'll click on subheader, and you can see that that reapplies the paragraph style to the subheader. If I click in the first paragraph and I don't want a drop cap, I would just make this body copy, and you can see that gets rid of the drop cap. However, if I do want the drop cap, I'll click body drop cap, and you can see that the body drop cap paragraph style has been reapplied. While paragraph styles deals with multiple paragraph formatting, character styles deals with character formatting. This could mean the size of text, the color of text, and those sorts of things. Let's look at how to create a character style. First, let's select the drop cap character A, and we're going to change the color. This will be the color that we'll use throughout the magazine design in this online course. So I'm going to open the color window and then double click the T to open the color picker. Now I already have a color here that I'd like to add to this, and you can add the code down below. I'm just going to select that and type in A5827D. Once you have that, go ahead and click OK. Now with the text still selected in the Properties panel, let's create a new character style and name it Drop Cap Tan. We'll have to switch over to our Character Styles tab, and let's click on the new character style icon, and we'll name this Drop Cap Tan. Just like that, press Return or Enter on your keyboard to finalize that. Now check this out. Currently we have the character style applied. If I expand the drop down and click None, it will return to black, and then I can change the drop cap back to tan. If I choose None and go back to my paragraph styles, you'll see that I have the drop cap, and if I want to add the additional character style, I have to apply it separately. However, we can add the character style directly inside of the paragraph style. Let me show you how that's done. First, click on the character style dropdown, and let's choose None, so the A character in our drop cap is back to black. Next, let's click on the selection tool and click away. Let's go to our paragraph styles window and double click to open the paragraph style options. In this window, there's a menu to the left with an option for drop caps and nested styles. We're going to be applying that character style to our drop cap. So you'll notice up top here under drop caps, there's an option for character styles. Let's choose that and click on Drop Cap Tan. And with my preview box selected, you'll notice that the A character inside of the paragraph style is now the Drop Cap Tan character style. Once you have that set, go ahead and click OK to exit the paragraph style options. And now we can test this out. If I double click and place my cursor anywhere in the first paragraph, I can click on Body Copy to go to the body copy style, and then I can click on body drop cap, and you'll see that it preserves the A character style that we created. In this next part, we'll go over how to place images into a layout. You'll also learn various ways to resize an image and how to use InDesign's fitting options. We'll also go over how to apply a text wrap to an image in this part. When placing an image in a layout, it's common for InDesign beginners to go to File and then choose Open. However, this does not open images, it just opens another InDesign document. Instead, let's go to File and choose Place. Target the image that you want to open, and in this example, we'll open runway_model.png. This is saved in the course asset files. Once you have that image selected, click Open. You can see that the image is loaded in my cursor. Now I could just click and drop it in just like so, or if I press Command-Control-Z, I can actually draw out the size I want. So starting from the left side margin and drawing out to the right, I can draw out the image size that I want like so. The other option when importing an image is just dragging it onto the workspace, and you can see the same applies. The image is loaded in my cursor, and I could just click to drop it in, or I could draw out the size that I want, much like I did in the first example. To import multiple images, go up to File and choose Place, and here you could choose multiple images by clicking on the first file and holding Command or Control on Windows and clicking the other ones that you want, and then choosing Open, and now all four of those images that I selected are in my loaded cursor, and I could draw them in or drop them into the layout one at a time. If for whatever reason you've changed your mind and you don't want to add these images to a layout, just press the Escape key on your keyboard and that deletes them from your loaded cursor. Now there's a difference between resizing the frame of an image and resizing the content. To resize the content within the frame, hover over the image until you see the content grabber, or the donut as some people call it. Click that and you'll see that the orange bounding box within the frame has been highlighted. You can use your sizing options up top, the width and height. Ensure that your constrained proportions for width and height is turned on. If you see a little slash between that link, click, ensure that that is on, and now when you resize this, it constrains both the width and height simultaneously. As an alternative and shortcut, if you hold Option Command, that's Alt and Control on Windows, and your greater than key, that will increase the size of the content. And alternatively, if you hold Option Command, Alt and Control on Windows, and the less than key, that will decrease the size. One thing you want to avoid is resizing the content within the frame freehand. So in other words, don't adjust the content like so, because you could see that the image becomes distorted. I'm going to press Command or Control-Z to go back. Instead, if you want to adjust the content within the frame, you can hold your Shift key and then adjust the content inside. You can see that still kept the proportions intact. Again, I'm going to press Command-Z to go back. So that's how you adjust the content within the frame. To crop the content, we'll have to adjust the frame. So let's click on the frame once, and you can see that we have handles all the way around this frame, which you can bring in or out to adjust. So to crop, just bring in the right side in, and you can bring in the left side in, and now you can see that we've cropped the image. You can also use your fitting options to reposition the content within the frame. You can see that the subject is a little off center here. So if I click the donut or content grabber, we can use our fitting options located in the upper right hand corner of the control panel or in the properties panel here. Now there are a few that I like to use to have the content fit the frame. Let's go over a few. If I hover over the first, this one's called Fill Frame Proportionally. So this will fill the content proportionate to the frame. If I press Command-Z and hover over the second option, this fits the content proportionally. In other words, this will show all the content inside the frame, but not necessarily fit it to the frame you created. You could see an example of that with the white space above and below the content. There's also the option for Content Aware Fit, which works similarly to Fill Frame Proportionally, but uses InDesign's AI to position the content accordingly. Now, there are a couple ways of increasing and decreasing the size of the actual frame. You can click on the frame and hold Option, Command, and greater than, much like you did with the content within that frame. Remember, that's Alt and Control on Windows and greater than. And alternatively, Option, Command, or Alt and Control and less than decreases the size. You can also hold Shift and Command and use any of the handles. I typically use one of the corner handles to increase the size. You can see that that keeps the proportions of the content also intact. So that's Shift Command or Shift Control and use any of the handles. Now I'm using the bottom center handle to increase the size. Now, to ensure that the image is centered to the page, you can simply click it, and once you see that magenta line, that's a smart guide telling you that that is centered on that page. You can go ahead and release. So if I press W on my keyboard to go into preview mode, I can use my down arrow key to nudge that image downwards, or you can use your up arrow key to move it up. Let's go ahead and add another image on the right-hand side of the layout. I'm going to press W to turn my guides back on. And again, I'm going to go up to File and choose Place to place an image. And in this case, I want to choose Model_2. Go ahead and click Open. Now, to ensure I create the frame size that I want, you can also hold Shift while you're dragging, and this gives you a little bit more control with the size of the frame that you want to draw out. So something like that will work. Once you have the frame size that you want, just simply release. And you can see that the image does not fit the size of the frame I selected. So remember, we can adjust the size several ways. I can make my way up to the control panel and use the width and height adjustments to increase or decrease the size of the content. To increase the size, we can also click on the content grabber, hold Option Command, that's Alt and Control on Windows and greater than, or we can also use our fitting options in the Properties panel. For example, Fill Frame Proportionally will fill the frame with the content. And at this point, I will also nudge the content up. You can see I have some space there, so I want to get the woman's shoes into the frame. And then if you need to, adjust the size of the frame by bringing it down ever so slightly. And you can see that the content fits nicely inside of the frame we created. Next, let's go over how to apply a text wrap to an image in a layout. For this, we'll need to access the text wrap window, which is located under Window and choosing Text Wrap. You can see I already have my text wrap window docked on the right-hand side. Alternatively, you can also find the text wrap icons located in the Properties panel. However, they'll only appear when you have an image selected. Both of these methods will work, and once again, it'll be based on your personal preference. But in this example, I'll be using the text wrap window. In this exercise, there's a PNG image saved as outfit_cutout. Let's bring that in next. I'll go up to File and choose Place. Here's the image, outfit_cutout.png. Let's click Open, and once again, it's loaded in my cursor. With the content loaded in the cursor, let's simply click and drag the size that we want. I'm going to increase the size a little bit more. Again, I'm going to hold Shift and Command, that's Shift Control on Windows, and drag out the corner handle. Any of the corner handles will work. I'm going to reposition this in between two of the columns. That's usually the best way of getting a good wrap. It's placing the content between two columns within the gutter. Now I'm going to zoom in for this. I'm going to hold Option and just scroll in with my mouse, and then hold spacebar and pan over to reposition my page for a better view. Again, the size of this can be readjusted after, but let's apply the text wrap next. With the frame selected, you don't necessarily have to click on the content. Let's just click on the frame. Now, because this is a PNG, we're going to use the option to wrap around object shape. If I chose wrap around bounding box, that just wraps content around the frame. Remember, we want the content to wrap around the outfit. So in this case, I'm going to choose wrap around object shape. Now, don't be alarmed. It's not wrapping as of yet. There's one other setting we have to apply, and that's under the contour options. Under type, let's drop that down, and we can choose select subject. That will select the subject, and in this case, it's the outfit. And then we can increase the offset to our wrap. You can see that the text is pretty tight to the content currently, and we can adjust that by increasing the offset here. You can see now it's 0.0625, and we can increase it a little bit more. And what I like to do is just click away and press W on my keyboard to have a look at how the wrap appears. So I could probably increase that a little bit more, maybe to 0.2. That might be a little too much. It sure is. So let's go back down, maybe to 0.1875. Maybe 0.125 works. I think in this case, I just have to reposition this a little bit better. So the best way of doing that is clicking on the frame, and as a first step, just use your right arrow key to make sure that you're getting a good text wrap. You can see that's better. That looks good. And then if you want to increase it, hold Shift Command, Shift Control on Windows and increase the size. We can also rotate it a bit if you wanted to. If you hover over any of the corner handles, let me do that again, Command Z, hover over any of the corner handles, you can see that my cursor turns into a rotation icon. I'm just going to rotate it, and you can see that the degrees is also showing. That's currently 2.75 degrees, and maybe I'll do something like 4 or 5, give it a good rotation, something like that. And then again, just reposition it. Make sure that you're getting a good wrap. So something like that looks good. I can do Command 0 to zoom back out, and you can see that my outfit has a text wrap applied to it. Now this is going to adjust the text. As you can see, if I click on that frame, I now have that overset text. So if I click on the overset text icon, I can just move the overset text to the pasteboard just in case I need it later on. Follow along in this next part of the course and learn how to work with the swatches panel to create custom global swatches. You probably noticed up until this point in the course, we have yet to apply any color to the design. For this next part, you will need 2 panels which by default should already be open regardless of the workspace you are in. These are the swatches and color panels. Now if you recall, we opened these panels earlier on in the course, and you can see I have mine docked here, swatches and color. However, if you still need these panels, go up to Window, choose Color, and then choose Color again, and then Window, Color, and Swatches. As a first step, let's create some circle shapes that we can add to our design. We'll create 3 or 4 and then spread them across the layout. For this, let's click on the ellipse tool or the ellipse frame tool, and while holding Shift to constrain the proportions, let's draw out a circle. Something like that looks good, and let's move it to the right of the image. Now if I open my swatches panel, currently there is no fill and there's no stroke applied. So basically what you see here is an empty frame without any color applied. As a first step, we can give this a black fill. And alternatively, if you wanted to give it a black stroke, you could toggle between the fill and stroke by clicking this small arrow icon to the right of the fill icon. And you can see now the stroke is black and there's no fill. And you could just do the same to go back to the fill color being black. Alternatively, you can do that here in the tools panel as well. You see it's a black fill currently, and I can swap between the fill and stroke just like that. A shortcut to this is holding Shift and the letter X on your keyboard, and that also toggles between the stroke and the fill. Now I'm going to scale this circle up just a little bit by holding Shift Command and increasing the size, and then I can just hold Option on a Mac that's Alt on Windows, and drag another copy. And let's make this one smaller. Shift, Command, and decrease the size. That's the easiest way. And just kind of, you don't have to put them in the same area that I'm putting them in, but just kind of scatter them around and maybe make this one a little bit smaller, just like that. And maybe one more down here. Something like that looks good. Something around there. And then we'll add maybe one or two on this side of the page, just like so. And maybe one more down in the bottom right of our second page. Good. So now we have circles applied, and we're going to create a swatch or a couple swatches that we can apply color fills to these circles. Now to create a swatch, let's open the swatches panel. Next, let's click on the options icon in the upper right hand corner, and let's choose new color swatch. This opens the new color swatch panel, and you can see as a default, it's set to black. First, let's ensure that the color mode is set to CMYK, since this is a magazine document we're working on. Now you could adjust the color sliders here if you wanted to. If you have a specific color in mind, you can play around with the cyan, magenta, yellow, and black sliders. And you can see when you do that, the figures to the right, the percentages, change when you slide them over. So currently the cyan is set to 19%, magenta is 71, yellow is 43, and black is 30. However, I do have a custom CMYK color that I'd like to add to this. Let's set the cyan value to 35. Press your tab key. Let's set the magenta value to 48. Press tab. Let's set the yellow value to 45. Press tab. And let's set the black to 5%. And once again, press tab. You'll see this is the color that I want here. Let's go ahead and click Add. And if I move the new color swatch window to the left, you'll see that the color swatch has been created and it's in my swatches panel. Now by default, the name of the swatch will be the color code of the CMYK values that we just inputted. However, if you deselect this option, Name with Color Value, you can now add a custom color name which will be applied to the swatches panel. I'll show you how to rename it shortly. Let's add another color code and swatch to our swatches panel. In the cyan value, let's make that 11%. Press your tab key, make the magenta value 14%. Press your tab key, make the yellow value 14%. And let's make the black value 2%. So you can see this is a much lighter tan than our original color swatch that we created. Let's go ahead and click Add again, and you can see that adds it to the color swatches panel. Once you have those two colors set, we can go ahead and click Done to close the new swatch window. So let's click on the first circle and give it the light color shape, and then you can just kind of alternate between the two. Click each circle and give it a color. Either one works, and then give that one the lighter color, and then the last one the dark color. So if I close my swatches panel and I press W on my keyboard, we've created multiple circle shapes and applied the two color swatches that we created. Now here's the cool part. If I open the swatches panel again and I double click on the lighter version, you'll notice that if I change the color here, it'll change in real time. So let's just say I wasn't happy with that original color and I wanted to adjust it. I can go in and make any adjustments using the sliders or adjusting the values for each of the CMYK values in the fields here, and then click OK, and that would take effect throughout the entire document that has those specific color swatches applied. But in this case, I don't want to change the colors, I just want to click Cancel. If you wanted to rename the swatches, as mentioned, just click it once until you see it highlight like this, and then we can call this light tan. And if I click on the second one once, we can call this dark tan. So we have our two color swatches, and I've just renamed them with custom names as well. Another cool thing about swatches is you can apply them to paragraph styles globally throughout a document. Let me show you what I mean. If I click on the paragraph styles window, I want to apply one of those color swatches to the body text headers throughout this entire article. So let me double click body text header, the paragraph style, and in the left side menu, you have an option for character style. With the preview box selected, let's choose the dark tan color, and if I move my paragraph style window, you'll notice that all the body text headers now have that dark tan color swatch applied. If I chose the light tan, that would change to the lighter tan color. You can see that's a little too light on the white background, so let's go back to dark tan and click OK. We could do the same with the body drop cap. Let's click on character style, double click drop cap tan, go to the character color, and let's choose dark tan and click OK. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the first hour of this online course, Getting Started in Adobe InDesign. To access the rest of the course, files, and lesson notes, visit montilladesign.com/courses to join today. Until next time, take care and keep creating.